We are going to have a conversation about public participation, right? Remember a number of cases that have gone to court, and the courts have said on various occasions, this one did not meet the master. When it comes to public participation is not a suggestion. It's actually a requirement. Article 10, Article what of the Constitution, they talk about all this and the other, right? Last week we hosted the Chief Justice and President of the Supreme Court, and we asked her, now surely all the other courts, High Court, Court of Appeal, have stood with the people, and then the Supreme Court is not standing with the people. She's like, absolutely no way. You people did not even understand the judgment that came out of the Supreme Court on the matter of Finance Act 2023. We actually came back and said, yes, public participation is an important component in lawmaking. And we even told Parliament, can you go and make a public participation law that guides this country on how public participation happens? Okay? Now, the issue that they were saying is, when a matter is now going through public participation in second reading, when then amendments are made, you need to explain how those amendments are arrived at. But you don't have, again, to go and say public participation on those amendments. That will be another circumlocutus process. Are we together? Are we together? Mm-hmm. Now, this is what Parliament has done. Parliament has, the National Assembly in September this year, formally handed over the responsibility to develop a legislative framework for public participation to the Office of the Attorney General and the Department of Justice. The Office of the Attorney General has developed the Public Participation Bill 2024, and it is now seeking views from the public, all stakeholders, and experts on the contents of the bill, which aims to enhance public participation in government and in the decision-making processes. The office is open to receiving views from individuals, public and private institutions, and interested parties by way of written memoranda. The bill can be accessed through their website of the statelaw.go.ke. The memoranda may be submitted in hard copy or soft copy via email so as to reach the Attorney General's office by the 15th of November 2024. When is 15th, Ndu?
It's on Friday.
Today is the 13th, yeah?
Yes.
So 15th is the day after tomorrow. So you have until the day after tomorrow to basically go through this bill and give your views to the Office of the Attorney General before then the Attorney General finalizes the draft and hands it back to Parliament and says, now can you guys discuss it? That's what we want to discuss today, the Public Participation Bill. We've been talking about a campaign called the ZKE campaign, which is a campaign to basically bring conversations that really matter to the fore and keep away the other noise. That is, politics, we are forming parties and alliances, we are doing all this and the other, when the matters of public participation and such bills are being drafted. We have invited Bright Shitemi, who is a Secretariat Chairperson at Kikao, and Beatrice Ouma, who is an activist and vocal youth and a paralegal. Good morning, Beatrice and Bright.
Good morning.
How are you? Karibuni sana to the hot seat of Kenya's biggest conversation. This is the Situation Room. Bright, you're bright, huh?
Yeah, feeling bright this morning.
Very good. It's bright and early.
Yeah.
Woke up bright and early. City is going to welcome you with the day's proverb. City.
Yes.
Tafadhali, tell us, where are we today?
We are in Sub-Saharan Africa, and we are in the Republic of Kenya. So our proverbs will be read to you in Kiswahili, and then we'll ask you, our esteemed guests, to give us a translation in the English language. 1, 2, what do you think the proverbs mean? Okay? Okay. Is there anyone who doesn't understand Kiswahili?
No.
Kila mtu naelewa Kiswahili?
Yeah.
Well done. Yeah. Bahati ikikukataa hata kwa mganga haitafaa.
Bahati ikikukataa hata kwa mganga haitafaa. Right? First,
yeah, translate to English. Bahati, luck. When luck, don't want to say refuses you, but
that is good. That's good when it refuses you.
When you're evaded by luck, even witchcraft cannot salvage the situation. And it goes, I think, in tandem with the other saying that siku ya nyani kufa miti yote uteleza. Yeah, similar to that one.
That's a very, very good saying.
Siku ya nyani kufa miti yote uteleza. And that for me means that sometimes You know, they say when it rains, it pours. When situations get so difficult, things are going out of turn.
Look at the brighter side of life.
Yes. That you should accept it at that point. Nothing really, even a witch cannot turn it around.
Okay.
Yeah.
Beatrice, what's your translation and then interpretation?
Okay, so my translation will be definitely use the word luck. If you and luck are on a very separate road, at the end of the day, maybe what you tend to deliver or even to speak out about won't really effectively reach or be understood of what you really want the impact to be. We'll really say if, let's say you're trying to achieve something in life, definitely you have used all the methods that you can, all the ways or the referrals that you want, but it has already refused, you know. So I think it's a time to withdraw or rather look in other different perspectives or engage in other different means. So we can clearly see it outside that we get situations whereby get really even compromised, but you tend to still push on the agenda that you need to buy this, you need to do this. And actually, at the end of the day, people can't really understand or even relate what you're trying to speak on.
Kabisa.
Yes.
Let's do another one from a part of Ouma Bay County. He menda. He menda. Accepts.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Beatrice, you're an activist, you're a vocal youth, you're a paralegal. What do you do in all those things?
So Beatrice Ouma is a very vocal youth, a Kenyan youth to be specific, definitely passionate about leadership and governance, and also as an activist, I also advocate and deal with human rights violations. We can say being human beings, we are not limited. We have our rights which are universal, but in the process we also get human rights violations. We also see lack of role of youth taking part in leadership and governance. We can also see our beautiful constitution, which provides Article 1 of the constitution says the sovereignty power belongs to all the people of citizens. So as a Kenyan youth, I exercise my right either directly or indirectly through my elected leaders. Yes.
It's a nice one. What's Kikao, Bright?
Yeah. So Kikao, like what you're having today here, is a Kikao, is a meeting of minds and having discussions. In our context, it's a movement that came about following the Gen Z protest, that we as young people decided that we have to be active citizens moving forward. And Kikao then became the idea and the home for us to drive this agenda. We are in different sectors, from people in the community to legal to tech. And what we want to do is to conduct national civic education, that realizing the key gap in our communities that people are not aware of some of these things. And secondly is to support the emerging leadership, like Beatrice, myself, and many others who are coming up, to understand the landscape and to function optimally to become the leadership today, not tomorrow.
To what end?
Well, to the end of capturing political power, I would say. But at this juncture, it's about educating because you see, you can't get to step B without starting with A. And A is about people being empowered with knowledge. Many people are not aware. For example, even when we talk about this public participation bill, how many people know that this is happening? Have their voices been represented? So do they know where to access this information, for example? This knowledge is denied from the people, I would say, by government. And so as young people, we've decided, those of us who have access, those of us who might know where to find such information, it is time to educate others so that we are all enlightened.
Do you think there's a deliberate effort by government to hide this information from people? Do you think so? And
yes.
So why?
I would think so because when people don't have knowledge, it's easy to control them. When you don't know the law, it's easy for a traffic police person to abuse your rights. And for politicians, the less information is with the public, the better it is for them, because they win elections much easily. They control people who more often than not are very poor much easily. And so knowledge, as they say, is power. and it's an instrument of control. Yes.
So as we look at public participation, it's one of the things that, just looking through a lot of memoranda that have come out, a lot of the petitions that have come through in the last 2 or 3 years, it is easily the single most element from the Constitution that has been drawn out as having been abrogated, right?
Yes.
This issue of public participation, that we've had entire petitions stand, or we've had huge things thrown out on that basis alone, that it did not have adequate public participation, right? But then what that does as well is that then it demands public participation by citizenry. So you can't say that there was not enough public participation if you didn't have people. It's like, chicken and egg situation. Which one you can use? You didn't have proper participation, but if you called for it, people did not come. So why are we with the issue? Are we not having people come out, or are we having a direct stifling of this public participation by not sharing the information?
Yeah, I think there's a conspiracy to deny Kenyans access to information. One, if you look at the Constitution, in the preamble, it talks about we the people and the sovereign power residing with the people. One of the ways people can exercise this sovereign power is through public participation. That's how our voices can be heard. Secondly, this matter came before the Supreme Court, which pronounced itself by delegating it back to Parliament, which to some of us, it is captured. One of the roles of the Supreme Court is that it can create or develop jurisprudence. If you remember the Maraga court in 2017, when ruling about the elections, they came about with what we call common law based of interpreting the Constitution. That's a power of the Supreme Court. In this situation, we expected that the Supreme Court would pronounce itself, because the lower courts have already mentioned that there are certain levels of public participation that need to be met. So it is the Supreme Court then to define what those levels are, because the law is already there. Throwing it back to Parliament, who we know treat what is urgent for them and what is not urgent for them, and what is convenient and what is not. Like today, we are saying we have 2 days to react to this. I don't know how many Kenyans are aware about that. And therefore, then you see a deliberate effort to deny Kenyans the right to participate in this very important duty.
So, Beatrice, how have you engaged on this particular bill, this specific bill?
Yes, I have engaged in this particular bill, but again, civic education is very important, because apart from me engaging in the bill, what is the rate or the ratio of how many Kenyan citizens have really engaged in that bill right now? Like you having 2 days to go. So again, I want to see the inclusivity part of it, and I can also say the government is also deliberately not engaging all the people, because definitely we can see the platforms that are there. And my question is a Kenyan citizen from Ukambani, Garissa, be able to reach and interact with that particular bill? So what are we saying? That it's the government has not really I can say put investment in the civic education, so that as I engage as a Kenyan citizen, what is my intention in that bill? What is my input? And how am I going to get feedback? And what mechanism is it going to be used, so that I can feel that my inputs and know what is it expected out of me? Yes.
So the bill is actually available on the State Law Office. statelaw.go.ke. You'll find it there, and then you'll be like confused. Now go and look at media. Open media, you'll find a drop down. You'll find policies and regulations. Open that, then you'll find many policies and regulations. The top of it is this particular one. It's actually called the Public Participation Bill 2024. Okay?
Yes.
Let me read just sections of it, a bit of it. The objects of this bill. The objects of the bill of this act, if enacted, shall be to give effect to the principles of public participation as provided for in several articles of the Constitution. It's not just one. In Article 10.2, in Article 69, 1D, in Article 118, Article 184, 1C, Article 196, Article 201A, Article 232, 1D of the Constitution. So it basically just tells you the Constitution has in very many ways said that you shall seek to engage the public when you're making decisions in government. All right. The other object of this bill will be promoting democracy and participation of the people in accordance with Article 10, ensure timely public access to information in language and format that's easy to understand, language and format. Now, I don't know what the translation of format would be here. That would be another whole issue, because like Beatrice and Bright, you're saying, how do you access this information? In what format? If you're being told go to a website, do you and download, do you and do what? Is that the only format? If you're told that the way to submit your memoranda shall be only in writing, and it shall be an email or hard copy, is that the only format that they should take? Enhance effective public participation in planning, budgeting, and implementation of government plans. Ensure effective participation of children, women, youth, persons with disability, older persons, minorities, and marginalized groups in governance. Institutionalize responsive, functional, and timely feedback, reporting, and dispute resolution mechanisms. This is the object of the Act, should it pass, right? Do you think we first of all understand the import of that? Those objects, City?
And if we do other Kenyans understand? Because when you talk of public participation, you're actually referring to the entire country, not a segment of Kenya. The details that are outlined there, and the short time in which we are given to consume, understand, and respond. If you were to take a completely adverse view and even become a little conspiratorial about it, what would you opine is the government's intention in supposedly rushing this matter? Because this thing, it's like on your marks, go. There's no even set in between. Yes. What would you think is the intention of government?
I think there's a deliberate intention to mutilate the constitution, because according to Article 10, public participation is a national value and a principle of governance. It is a key principle of governance that moving forward from 2010 constitution, that the people will be involved, not just people, even children. Here you mentioned children, youth. All these groups need to be represented and their voices heard. And if you look at the bill, there are certain things it proposes that some people might miss. One of the things it says is that there should be a registrar of public participation who is appointed by the CS, by a CS.
A registrar of public participation?
Yes.
Okay.
So you're telling me that an appointee of the executive appoints another appointee to oversee a critical piece of the demands of a constitution, that people get involved. We know already, by virtue of me appointing you in a particular seat or putting you in a particular position, you tend to dance to the whims of the...
You're already boxed in.
You're already boxed in. So you're basically taking a key instrument that, even as at now, the courts have already pronounced to a large extent on how public participation should be conducted. Why do we need to revisit that conversation and then create a whole agency, which is another waste of resources? Because the Attorney General's office can be expanded to do this role. Why do you need to create a registrar of public participation to oversee public participation in a bill that doesn't even effectively conduct public participation?
Maybe it's a good thing, though. Maybe then there's somebody who's responsible. There's an office that's actually an office that you can ask. Can you give me records? If, for example, Charargei's bill on extension of the terms, if Charargei comes and says, we received, 7,000 or 5,000 and 70% said yes, you can go to this particular office and say, I want to see. In terms of there is a place. You can, at any particular point, expect that then the registrar of public participation shall be facilitated to ensure that public participation actually happens, shall be facilitated to see that public participation is happening across the country. There's that one office whose job is, you have a bill, Parliament, bring it. I shall take it to the people. You have a bill, you have a policy that you're working on, whichever state department, bring it. I shall take it to the people. Maybe that.
Yes, it sounds good when you talk about it that way, but they say the devil is in the details, you see, because there are certain powers that are given to these registrar, right, that actually, again, mutilates the constitution, the right. The beautiful thing is that Kenya does not exist in isolation. Public participation happens in many other jurisdictions. How does it happen there, right? As it is right now, the Attorney General's office, the state law office, is the one that publicizes issues that need public participation. So we have already an institution that can be equipped. We should have resources already. What will change? Will the government now with the registrar be issuing, be putting all these bills in a more public manner? Will they be giving more time because there's an office? I would say no, because already we have the capacity to do that. Why do we need to set another layer of governance to conduct public participation?
I can hear what you're saying, but are you perhaps suggesting that if indeed there was a registrar,
Yes.
the registrar would be the arbitrator? This is the person who will determine what it is a public participation is, whether, so that when an issue is brought before the court, the registrar is brought in to ask if indeed this issue of public participation meets the required standards or not.
Yes, and if you read the bill, one of the things that it says is that the registrar can treat certain matters as urgent, others as not urgent, and it even segments public participation. I mean, public participation should be a continuous process. It can't be that the cabinet can conduct. Yeah.
So this bill actually tells us with great clarity what it is the government wants public participation to be.
Yes.
They've already curated it. They've said, this is what we want.
Yeah.
And we'll have a registrar who will shepherd this thing and take it in the direction that we see it ought to be.
Yes.
And in so doing, you're saying they are mutilating the Constitution.
Yes.
That was not what the Constitution
That was
intended.
not what was the intention of the Constitution.
What would you like? Right.
Already, like I keep saying, we've had situations where public participation has been conducted. For example, even with ejection of the former deputy president from office. How was it conducted? Who was in charge?
The clerk of the National Assembly.
Yes. Can it be done? Can that office then be equipped? Right? Do we need to create a separate agency just for public participation? Isn't that duplication of efforts? Isn't that what we call wastage, where you have 30 ministries that you don't need? So, is it that these people are overwhelmed not to conduct this exercise? Because you see, once you start introducing new laws with small caveats here and there that gives new powers to this new office, that then goes against the spirit of the framers of the Constitution and the intention, then you create problems. And that's what we see in this bill. If you read it in detail, you see there's a very subtle, hidden agenda to mutilate the whole process.
Beatrice, do you agree with this view?
My view on this bill will be, let's see the need or the face of transparency and accountability, because it's high time we stop box checking. If indeed you need the public input to be incorporated in the bill, what are the ways or measures that you put and making sure that all the input of the Kenyan citizens will be addressed? And what is the feedback mechanism that you will get from these people? Tell me, why are you giving us specific platforms and in areas that are definitely, as a Kenyan youth, or we can see the vulnerability that is in very different counties, and Maki, you are giving only one platform to give my views and my views on that public bill. Not all the people will definitely participate. And again, the timeline. Are we sure that a whole percentage have really interacted with the public participation bill? So that is the question. As much as we want to tick boxes and checking that we did this, it's like giving me a book full of written words and a pen, and you tell me, write your inputs on it.
In the entire book.
The entire
And
book.
you have 40
definitely.
minutes.
And you have 40 minutes to complete. Doesn't make any sense. Let us see the transparency and accountability of this bill so that every youth and Kenyan person can really interact with it.
We are discussing the Public Participation Bill 2024. Have you heard about it? Maybe you haven't. Okay, so the Attorney General has a bill that they've been working on. They were told by Parliament in September, please draft a public participation bill. These things of going to court and we are being told public participation, can the AG give us a bill that then we shall discuss in Parliament and pass as law? So the AG has now published it, and they're saying you have until the 15th to give your views on the bill that they are working on before they take it to Parliament. And then Parliament, of course, shall come back to you in the second reading with another round of public participation on the specific bill. Do you know about it? That's what we're discussing. What should happen so we can make sure everybody knows about it, and that then it makes sense that a public participation bill is drafted in a manner that addresses the needs of the Kenyans. Do you know Shadrach Mose?
I don't think so.
Shadrach Mose is the Solicitor General of the Republic of Kenya. So Shadrach Mose, the Solicitor General, has called on individuals, members of the public, private and public institutions to submit suggestions on a given format by the 15th of November 2024 on this draft public participation bill. The submissions can be done in both hard or soft copies in an email to an email address that is publicparticipation@ag.ke. And the subject must be Memorandum on the Draft Public Participation Bill 2024. Hard copies, take them to the Office of the Attorney General, the Department of Justice in Sharia House. Okay?
So there's call for public participation on public participation.
Yeah, on the public participation bill.
Yeah.
Okay. This is what's happening. Now, Beatrice Ouma, activist for Okoh Youth and Paralegal, is saying, come on, this is not the right way to do it. So how would you do it? If we removed Shadrach Mose and we made Beatrice Ouma the Solicitor General, go.
So first of all, we need to see, the systemic barriers that definitely is making the people not to engage. And again, we are saying that if there is lack of information, definitely people not understand on what is being told or what is being said. So if there is need to impact or empower on civic education for the people, they will also own up the process, right? Because what do we mean by public? Okay, so that is something that should ring a bell into my mind or into the mind of people, that if it's a public thing, it means it's the people-led, the people initiative, so that the people can also build trust and see the impacts of the public participation bill. So, but if we keep on avoiding this conversation, these hard conversations, that if we say it is for the public, need the public to put their inputs. And what is the feedback? How will they be able to access? Yeah? What they've definitely talked about. Because don't tell me you want my input right now, but when it comes to the feedback part of it, there is no information I'm getting back. What channel are we also using so that I can feel meaningfully engaged in that public participation?
They would argue that this process that we're talking about is precisely that. They're asking you, please come and give us your view. Write it down in this document called memorandum. Bring it. Okay? And you're right. We brought these things before. And have we forgotten feedback from these things?
No. One of the things that actually one of the reasons why the finance bill, the Finance Act had been rejected, one of the reasons that cited in the High Court and Court of Appeal was there was no sufficient feedback to the people. So how do we know it was meaningful? And like Beatrice, you're saying, meaningful means that I've got to engage with it end to end. I gave you the feedback, then you come back and tell me, all right, so this is the feedback that we received, but you also received, now this is what you said, but Eric City and Bright said this, and Ndu said this. So we go with Eric City and Bright because there are many of them, and the majority said. But we don't get to know.
The closest we got to this was during the impeachment of the deputy president. There was some attempt to tell us, well, when we took this thing countrywide, this is how we got the report. There was data. You don't even tell us what method you used to collect that data, how you arrived at what you're telling us. You're just telling us this is what we found. How did you find it? The how? And you're spot on. We're not told these things.
Yes, definitely.
Yes.
And that is where we can see the gap. That when you tell us this is what we have collected from the ground, and definitely we don't see it. We don't even see the measures or the means that this is definitely what we said. So coming at the end of it, we can't even relate of what you're telling us.
Actually, there's an interesting example with matters regarding the university. There was a body, whatever it was called, that went around gathering opinion. So we assume that whatever it is that was then determined and said, this is the way we are going to go, arose from the findings. But it's strange. If the public participated, why was there such a hue and cry about something they participated on? Because it was the implementation of both, and they said, what is this? Now, but if they participated, should the reception not have been better?
If they did.
Yes.
Yeah, I think there needs to be a definition of what is effective public participation, because you cannot just conduct public participation that is not effective. Is it one timely? Was there information given out to the public, not just segments of the public, to the whole public? Was it accessible, that information? And the process of then the participation, was it iterative? Was it adaptable? Did you take on these views? And then to make sure that those views were taken on board, was it transparent? Can we verify that Ndu said this, City said this, Bright said this, and this is what it looks like? Because you remember the other day, Senator Chairperson went to Parliament and said, 60% of the population actually support extension of how can you verify that? You see? Yeah. And so those issues, and again, we are just looking at Parliament. According to the Public Participation Act of 2018, because these things have been done before, public participation has to happen across all levels of government, including the judiciary when they're conducting administrative duties. So it doesn't happen sometimes or often. Again, so we need to...
When has it happened? I mean, for it... When has it... The thing is, when has it happened? Do we have evidence that this is that all sectors of government, high, low, across... When has it happened?
No, I have not seen it happen.
So it has never happened?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Who owns... I think it's also for us to understand or maybe appreciate from a... I don't know if it's an opinionated thing or fact. Who owns the process of public participation?
As currently set up, because with the Public Participation Act of 2018, the fact that they say it should be conducted at all levels of government, it means at that level of government, that particular official owns the duty to conduct effective public participation.
Right.
If it's at the county level, then the county government has a responsibility to conduct. Okay. If it's at the cabinet level, there's a minister, there's officers in that ministry that ought to conduct effective public participation. If it's a parliamentary bill, then there's the parliament. It has its officers who, like it happened in the DP's case, conducted public participation.
Okay.
Now, when you want to open another entity called the registrar and give it blanket powers to decide what is urgent, what is not, what can come, what is, and it basically set up the structure of what public participation should look like, you're mutilating the constitution.
This is true. Yeah. So then, because the questions come about in terms of a guarantee, Beatrice, maybe you can jump in here as well, in terms of a guarantee of what will actually be done, because I tend to see that there's lethargy for people to participate because you question whether your participation will actually be taken into consideration when the final thing is being done. Or is it a rubber stamp moment, a box, tick, where people are saying, okay, well, we did it, right? We got so many hundreds of thousands of people to send in memoranda, or we all met at BOMAS, or whatever it is that we did. But how can you be sure that your participation as a Kenyan is actually going to be considered? Or is it just going to be some papers that we're going to, stuff in a box and push under the table and say, well, we did it? So what are the safeguards for guarantee that Kenyans will come out and say, actually, you know what? I think this is what it should look like. And then who is the one who says, all right, let's take all of these things into consideration. Of the 1 million that we got, there's similarity in 400,000. So we can now come up and say, these are the 3 things Kenyans are saying. Another 500,000, there's similarity in them, and we can chalk up and say there are 7. And so out of the public participation, there are 11 considerations that need to be made. And now we're going to add that to the bill. Who does that? Or who should do that?
Yeah, so the people should do that. You have a role, and we did that recently. You saw what happened when the parliament did not take on board feedback from the public. There was extensive protest, and some of them have even called it an attempted coup. But we as young people from Dandora to Westlands went on the street and said, no, hell no to this, right? And that's one of the ways we can exercise our sovereign power, right? So because as governments all over are set up, they are set up in a way to protect themselves and shield themselves from the public. And so the public in our constitution then has that sovereign power to exercise its role directly or indirectly. So one of the ways is, yes, we can hold people to account. At the county level, we can submit memos, we can submit petitions. As an individual, you can also submit a petition to Parliament. Only that people are not aware. And those who are aware, because they exist as individuals, it's very hard for you to operate as an individual. When you take feedback, say, look, you guys did not take this on board. In some cases, you've had people even being killed by addressing issues at the county level. So
if what you're saying is correct, then I've just seen a comment here, and it just coincides with what I was going to ask, is that if that is the case, if you're saying that the process belongs to the people, Beatrice, right, but then you're going to put all of this responsibility under a cabinet secretary and whom they choose to have a conversation with, how then do you safeguard the sovereignty of the people? How do you do that?
We really need to see the accessibility and inclusivity of all the people, despite the fact that we are saying that it will be under one umbrella, so that we want to see it as people initiative, people led. But again, you having obstacles or even bridging the ways or the things that the people should participate, it will be personalized, and people will tend to shy away from even now giving their own input. They will feel like it's not my responsibility, but we need to put it in terms of where citizens can really interact and get to relate. We have talked about the language barrier. Do the people even understand what you are trying to bring out, or are we just trying to do it because we need to do it? But again, when we come to now talking the part of public participation, what is the people input? As much as we'll have someone leading the process, what is the impact to the people?
Do you think that the citizenry of this country understand the importance of public participation, meaning them as the public and their participation? Do you think they actually understand it?
I can say not the whole percentage, because definitely with the lack of information, I will not really understand what you are trying to tell me. That is where the need of civic education comes in. How are we even supporting the civic education in different areas of the country? Are we reading from the same page? Do everyone really relate? You come and tell me I need to participate. In what sense? What is my input? What is my role? Because you'll get people even say, I've never really even attended a public participation. I really don't know what's supposed to be done in a public participation. But now you owning up the process and now taking the initiative to make sure that a percentage of people really interact in it. For example, for us coming from Embakasi North, we do our public participation in Dandora. It has never rotated back to Kariobangi. So each and every time we need to attend a public participation, we need to go to Dandora. So why is it only a one-way traffic? How will you get to the people who are at Kariobangi despite having them coming out? So we can see the synergy, or rather the ways they're being used, if they can really be even interchange, so that we can even see, coming from a same constituency, are we getting all the views from the same people?
Let me ask another question. Do you think people actually understand that their views matter?
No, they don't. And actually, you're speaking to the need of what we are doing at Kikao, that it's possible at very low cost to conduct national civic education. Young people have stepped up recently, and so far we've received over 300 applications of people across the nation who are saying, look, as a young person, as a leader, or even as an older person, I'm willing to devote part of my time to talk to the public about these issues, because we're speaking at a national level. At a county level, these same processes happen, right? There's a public participation, there's bills that are brought about in counties. Do the people know? Most of the time they don't, right? And so there is need for that information to trickle down to the people. Ideally, government should be doing this, but it doesn't do it effectively. And it provides now players like us to come raise funds, ask people, support us, let us go to the community and talk to people.
Sounds to me that the basic part of this public participation should be civic education.
Yes.
That in everything, when you want the public's feedback, you first of all should explain what you want the feedback from and for and about, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, in this particular bill, so the Office of the Attorney General wants public input on this particular bill. They should first of all start by saying, so this is what we are thinking. Then ask you, what do you think? What's your view? What would you like to add? What would you like to remove, right? Mm-hmm. So, and if you haven't done the education that says, this is the reason why we need to come up with a public participation bill, for example, because the constitution, blah, 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 and now we need to have a structured way in which public participation happens, and this will ensure that at whatever stage, whether it's national, county, that it shall be uniform. Not that one county says we can do public participation through barazas, another county says we shall do public participation through just asking people to send memorandum, and another one decides that we are going to use X spaces. Join an X space on this day and tell us what you think, and that shall be considered public. So we need to harmonize it. But that's where civic education needs to happen. And the bill should also start with ensuring that civic education precedes asking the views. You're coming to get my views on the Finance Bill 2025. The first thing that you shall do is you shall create awareness. What is contained, what's the content of the bill. Mm-hmm. And then after you've done that for 3 weeks, then come and ask me, now, what do you think, for another 3 weeks? And then proceed, right?
Yes.
Because without that, then what are we doing? What's this public participation thing? It's just, there's a bill, by the way, submit your memoranda.
And even after that you come back to the public and say, yes, we agreed here, we did not change here because of this. It doesn't mean that the public will say things and everything will be onboarded. It means that they were involved, one, meaningfully, and two, that the entity charged with public participation can come back to the public and say, we did not effect this because of A, B, and C, and D. That there's that feedback loop that you're telling people, yes, we didn't. And this happens, like I said, I've had the benefit of traveling, and I was recently in Belgium, and I saw public participation happening at commune level. Commune is the equivalent of a ward, right? And it happens on almost everything. If someone wants to put up a new building, right, there's a conversation. There's someone who wants to put up a mall in this area. What do the public think about it? We want to move in immigrants in this area. What do the public think about it? So anything national is cascaded down to the people, and they are made aware in good time to react. And that's what we expect here also.
It is interesting because what seems apparent and clear with those who are in government and those whom we have delegated our powers to, they seem to be of the opinion that so long as they have participated, we have participated. So long as they have decided, we have decided. While we're having this discussion, maybe we need to also look at this issue of delegating power and how it is and what it is it means, because somewhere along the line, I think this delegation is being abused.
Yeah, I mean, if I may just react to that, and the argument with certain groups or segments of society and politicians is that you voted us in, so we are representing you. The framers of the Constitution were not stupid, yeah? Mm-hmm. When they said that the public participation has to be conducted in this and that way. And that's because they realize that there's tendencies of governments or parliaments to be manipulated and to misrepresent the wishes of the people. It happens here all the time. And so that's why it is very important that this happens. In my view, if we go ahead with this process as it is, already it started on a wrong foot. Many people, when you shared this with me and I shared with people who discuss politics and policy, many of them did not know about this bill.
Imagine.
Yeah, so what does that tell you?
So the message basically here to the Office of the Attorney General is the 15th, no, forget about it. You've got to extend these timelines, and first you have to start by creating awareness.
Yes.
What is this bill? and then seek public opinion on it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Bright, for joining us. Bright Shitemi is the chairperson of the Secretariat of Kikao, which he says after the Gen Zs decided to do what they did, they decided the next thing we want to do is have a Kikao, all of us as a people, and discuss things that matter to us on a regular basis. Beatrice Ouma is an activist and vocal youth and paralegal, and she has also been our guest this morning discussing the Public Participation Bill 2024, views being sought by the Office of the Attorney General.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.